If you're really lucky, you have two editors or more bidding on you. They call that going to auction. They'll usually give it to you in four installments. So first, when you sign with them, you've sold your baby not just to an editor, but to like a whole team. So there are, marketing people, salespeople, a publicist, more assistants than you'll ever know working like behind the scenes.
Katie Yee is an author from Brooklyn. Her debut novel is on the watch list for most anticipated debut novels of the year. And in our conversation today, Katie takes us behind the scenes of her writing process, how she edits her books, as well as how she found the best fit in terms of agents. Also, Katie gives me and you the most incredible insights with regards to what actually happens in the process of landing a book deal. I can't wait for you to meet Katie. Let me introduce you to her. Katie, could you walk me through the turning points that led you to writing your debut novel?
Definitely. So I, before this, considered myself a short story writer. So this novel that I wrote like began as like a very short, like 10-page short story. And I think the turning point for me, the first one was sort of I just wanted to keep going back and like hanging out with these imaginary friends that I had kind of created. Yeah, this is like something that the short story just kept getting bigger and kind of rolling away from me. And I think time and time again, I wanted to go back to it. We're going to get a little bit into the business side of things. I had queried for an agent based on like a short story collection, actually, which a lot of people tell you that you shouldn't do if you think you might have a novel in you, just because in the industry, I feel like most people tend to think that short stories don't really sell. So they want you to go out with your like novel first. If this is like helpful information, I hope it is. So I had queried with short stories and I found this phenomenal agent. And she was basically like, love these stories, would love to sign you. But do you think you might have a novel kind of sitting in a drawer somewhere? And that was kind of the prompt that I needed to really go back and kind of gave me permission to really call this like big baggy project that I was working on like a novel instead of just like a really long short story.
Oh my word. Okay, I can't wait to ask you more questions about that. I've never heard anybody speak about that. But let's first stick with the writing side. Can
Yeah.
you explain some of the highlights and some of the challenges that you encountered when putting the short story into now a full-blown novel?
Definitely. Look, so much of my writing process was Googling, like, what is the minimum number of words for a novel? Just because I tend to write pretty short and brief. So, if you find yourself doing that, I feel like, as a writer, we Google some weird things.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a lot of that process. Highlights. Definitely just getting to know the characters in my book. So my debut novel is about a woman who discovers that her husband is having an affair right around the same time that she's also diagnosed with breast cancer, but hopefully in like a funny way where she names the tumor after his lover. She starts talking to it. And it also becomes really about her relationship with her two biracial children. She becomes like really obsessed with like trying to make them laugh and with like their bedtime stories and with kind of trying to infusing their bedtime stories with like the Chinese mythology that she grew up with. And I think one of the big highlights for me was really just getting to like sit in the mind of this fictional character to really get to know her. I myself am not a mother, and personally, I'm kind of on the fence about motherhood for me. So this book was really an opportunity to put all of my anxieties and like fears and hopes about motherhood on the page and kind of see how it felt. So that was like a big joy for me and a big surprise. Something that I struggled with, plot is so hard. I think when I start writing, I start with voice. And I'm very much like the kind of reader that just reads for like language and like the way that things sound. So plot is hard. I'm kind of like, what do you mean things have to happen every couple of pages? I also think dialogue is really hard. And I'm hoping you and I can maybe talk a little bit about that because I know that you've written like screenplays, right? Yeah, I always found those two things to be kind of a big challenge. But for me, something that helped, that was like a challenge and also kind of a good thing, is because she was a mother and because she had recently gotten this diagnosis, there were some like real world timelines that I at least could kind of adhere to, right? So like, here in New York, school lets out the last day of June. The kids go back to school the first week of September. Like those were kind of real like bookends that I could really consider and make things happen in between. And likewise with doctor's appointments and you know, things like that. That was a helpful like time marker to keep things moving along.
Listening to you speak now, I just have to laugh because I feel like every single project is so different and it requires such different things from the author. So coming from like a screenwriting background, for me, I just see dialogue. Like the dialogue is what comes, and then I'm like, oh, now I have to make it sound nice. Like you want to know what he smells like? You want to know what he looks like? Like just listen to them speak. It says everything. And it's so funny because I was now writing my debut novel, and
Mhm.
the plan was to convert some of my screenplays into novels. But for this novel, I was like, no, I'm starting fresh. Like screenplays behind me. This is new me, new stories. And I struggled so much. And then I was like, you know what? I'm actually just gonna write what happens and then I'll find the voice. So it's so interesting hearing like we're complete opposites in how we like dive into the story. And man, everything like just listening to you, I'm like, oh gosh, I wish I wish I could have like found the voice and the character and like made them sort of after I figured out what happened.
No, but I kind of feel the exact opposite. I feel like the grass is always greener, and there's like no one way to write this kind of thing. But like I'm sitting over here being like, how nice to know what all the other characters sound like, to have dialogue and like plot kind of come so naturally the way that you seem to.
Yeah, so my big tip for this is work from coffee shops. Like I can't help myself. My husband and I actually have a code word. Oh gosh, it's terrible. It's called plant influencer. And if I say plant influencer, it means I'm looking at you, but I'm listening to that conversation.
I
I'm just like
love
so
that.
into that story. And then like sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I just have to like take this down. This is so good. And then I've never really like word for word used what somebody has said, but it has often just like catapulted like this idea or the scene or so like I just always like tune into what other people are saying.
I love that. I'm someone who like only writes right here in this seat that I'm sitting in, like at home, because I like to be surrounded by all of my things. But whenever my boyfriend and I are out to dinner, we do something very similar where like, this is very smart of you to have like a code word, but we both have a tendency to just be listening to like other conversations. So I think we both know when we both kind of freeze and kind of just do the like, we should just like pause what we're saying and kind of listen in for a little bit.
But then do you guys ever like have a conversation about what they're talking about, or are you able to like pause and just
We'll
listen?
We'll do it like on the way home. We won't do it like with earshot. But that's such a good way, I think, to like exercise that like collaborative creative muscle, because I think like all the time we'll catch like a little tidbit of a conversation and then we'll be like, okay, let's break it down. Like, what do they do for a living? Like, what is their relationship? Like, and that's, I mean, we're not putting this anywhere usually. I mean, I'm hoping that it would be nice for some of it to kind of catapult into like a larger creative project. But I think that's even just like a fun thing to do with like a partner or a friend, is to kind of take inspiration from the wealth of characters you have walking around right in front of you all the time.
Yeah, but also just like I appreciate stories so much that if I like this one conversation that literally happened next to me in a coffee shop was a couple going through a divorce.
Oh my God.
And I couldn't function. Like I was holding the tears back. I was like my stomach was knotted. It was the most painful thing
Oh.
to listen to. But I was like, this is why like I don't watch TV or like subscribe to like all of these streaming platforms, because like real life, they are just like these real stories that are like taking place all around us. And I just find myself able to just really like just be present in that moment and just appreciate it for what it is. Sometimes I take inspiration, sometimes I'll take notes, but other times like I can just really just be there and be like, whoa, like this is life, man. Hectic.
Mhm. And it's so interesting because I feel like whenever you can hear, other people having a conversation, like let's say there's like a couple fighting about something really small. I don't know, like they're at a coffee shop and they're fighting about, you spilled something and you didn't say you're sorry, but like that's probably not what they're really fighting about, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, and so I think, yeah, taking observation in these real world scenarios is like such a good like way to be like, what is this little like pebble in the shoe of the bigger problem, you know?
Or just even, I saw this couple, again, coffee shop, not even a couple, sorry, but it inspired a meet cute because now this is in one of my screenplays that will become a book. But they reached for each other's coffees and they both had a sip and then both realized it wasn't theirs and then like asked, and it just like strangers, complete strangers,
That's
and
cute.
then there was just this connection that happened right in front of my eyes, and I was like, whoa, meet cute, meet cute.
I love
Anyway,
that.
I love working from coffee shops, and I am known to eat cake for breakfast. So I will
I
just
love
go
that.
scout coffee shops, have cake for breakfast, and then like have a little writing slot, like maybe once a week. But maybe now these days, once every 2 weeks. Anyway, that was so fun to go there. But now, can you tell me, how did you go about editing your novel? And is it different to editing a short story?
Yes, I think for me, the bulk of editing was expansion. So because I tend to write like slender, bare bones, I feel like I kind of gave myself the skeleton of the building. And so much of the process of going back was kind of sitting in a scene for like a little bit longer, right? Or like, and this is something that like early trusted readers and my agent and eventually my editor also said, most of the notes I got back were like, could you just sit here one more beat, or like could we get like three more lines of dialogue right here, could she sit in this thought and this feeling, could we see that just for like another half a page, and so bit by bit that's how it got bigger.
I must say, I am so excited to read your book. Just like reading what I saw on Goodreads, I was like, oh my gosh, like I've been so excited to chat to you because it really comes across, even just from the description of the book, that you really get to the point. And like I find that even just hearing now that you say you write often shorter, like I have often found that some of the best books are the shorter ones, because sometimes I feel like authors just throw in scenes just for page count.
Mhm.
But just to hear like how you've approached writing it and editing it, and just the guidance in terms of like sitting in spaces longer, makes me so excited to read it.
Thank
Um,
you.
but moving on now to the point where you found your agent. How did you go about querying your short stories? Did you go about it the same way you would query a novel? How did you find your agent? If you could just paint that picture for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably different from like country to country, maybe. But for me, I went out with my collection of short stories. So I had maybe like 7 or 8 of them. I wrote like a query letter that was basically kind of like an artist statement. You're like, this is who I am, this is where I'm coming from. I'm attaching some stories here. Here's how I see like the central themes that I'm dealing in. Here are like some of the central questions that I'm trying to answer with my collection. Sent that out to probably 10 agents. And this is maybe a good tip to like finding, to like even just like a good starting point for finding agents. If you just make a stack of like your favorite books and you go into the back and you read the acknowledgments and you see who those agents are, I think that's how you get your first list. Yeah, so I sent those letters out, and then I started like I was really lucky. So I started having like all these phone calls with agents, and I found the perfect fit.
Okay, I want to hear all about the perfect fit, but I just recall listening to an interview with Elizabeth Gilbert, and when she started her journey, she also, I think I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. She started with short stories, and her intention, I think, was more to get into like the journalism side. Was that sort of where you wanted to go? What was your part behind writing short stories, and maybe also a strategy if there was one?
Definitely not a strategy. I don't do anything that planned. By journalism, do you mean like trying to get into like literary journals and like trying
I
to get
think she got into, I think back then there were publications, like printed publications with short
yeah.
stories, but I think that short story of hers actually landed her a job with GQ. I might have the publication wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was GQ. So that's where the idea for Coyote
Yeah.
Ugly came from, because she was doing like a piece, and then she wrote this piece, I think in GQ, about the bar and some of the
Yeah.
story of Coyote Ugly. And then somebody picked it up and turned it into a movie. So I was just curious if you were trying to become like a journalist or if this was always your end goal.
Oh, that is like a dream career trajectory.
Yeah.
Um, Journalism, not so much. I mean, I tend to dabble like only in fiction. I mean, well, I don't know what this says about me and my relationship to reality. I prefer to kind of just hang out in the imaginary for like my own writing. I love short stories just like as a form. I don't really see them as like a means to an end. But what you're saying totally makes sense. And actually, this is definitely worth talking about. There are still some like literary magazines and publications. Most of them are online now for obvious reasons, but they do publish short fiction, and that's also like a really good starting point. So actually, let's go back even further. I probably should have started here. I had spent probably like a decade, like ever since college, just submitting short stories anytime there was like an open call from a publication that I loved. Got a whole bunch of rejections, which is okay. This is totally part of the process. But I do think kind of building your bio, and getting short stories in these various places is also like a good starting point, and that will hopefully get like an agent's attention as well.
Can we just touch on rejection? As somebody who is a professional at being rejected, I would love to know how you dealt with that and how did you keep going?
There is like a Lit Hub piece that says, what is it called? It's like aim for 100 rejections. I can send you the link later. That might not be exactly what it's called. But I love that piece because it talks about really how rejection is kind of just a way that you know that you're like getting your work out there, right? You're like doing the darn thing. And if you're really lucky, I think the rejections start to get like a little nicer. I've interned at a lot of different like publishing houses and magazines during like high school and college. So I know that like for a lot of magazines, there are like tiers of rejections, right? So like if they're rejecting you, but they really loved, your piece and it was like a close call and maybe a lot of people on the staff were like fighting for it, they'll send you like a really nice rejection that's like, we really loved it. Maybe they'll encourage you to send something again. They'll have like clear notes that like really show, I think, that they read it and that they connected with it. And then, you have like, the different tier of rejection, which would be like, thank you, this wasn't quite right. And I think the more you do, I mean, I definitely started out and got like way more of the latter, but I think the more you do it and the more you put yourself out there and the more you submit, the rejections start to get like a little bit more personal and a little bit nicer. And that for me was like always encouraging, right? Like a sign that you're like on the right track.
Just out of curiosity, were you always a writer even back at school and at college, or was this something you only picked up after college?
This is the only thing I've ever wanted to do with my life. Ever since I was like 3 years old, I recently was at my parents' house and I found this like diary from elementary school where I had been like listing out career options for some reason. And it was like 1, writer, 2, pop star, which is like, it's a good thing that I have absolutely no singing ability. So those priorities were exactly correct.
And did you have any authors in your family? Like, how did you know it was even something? Okay.
No, no authors in my family. How did I know that this was something that I wanted to do? I was really lucky growing up. My mom was like always surrounding me with books. We went to the library all the time. We lived just like down the block from it. Yeah, and she was just always like reading to me and always like encouraging me to carry books around with me. Um, my mom's also just such a good like storyteller, and every time she would like read me a bedtime story or tell me a story, she'd be like, okay, like it's your turn now, like you tell me a story. And I think that practice kind of gets back to what you and I were saying about like sitting in a coffee shop and kind of making up stories and scenes in our heads. Like that practice at a young age, I think was like so formative to this entire career.
Shout out, mom. That's
Shout out to mom.
so nice that you had that. Okay, let's pivot to you finding your agent. Please tell us, what should we be looking out for when it comes to fits? Any tips you have for authors who are in the process where they have a couple of agents reaching out to them saying that they're interested in potentially representing them?
Yeah, that would be a super exciting phase to be in. So the first thing you should do is definitely like sit back, maybe pour a glass of champagne, celebrate. And I think, I mean, there are so many different kinds of agents, and because there are so many different kinds of writers, right? So I think, and I'm going to ask you this question now, sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot, but like it depends on what you're looking for in an agent. I guess I'll kind of go first and then I want to ask you for your thoughts on this. But like, you know, for me, I wanted an agent that was going to be like a business partner, but who I also like felt like was a friend, right? Like I wanted to be able to like text her and be like, I'm thinking through this, or like, this is my new fear. And for us to be able to like really like talk through things. But I also wanted someone who was going to be like good at talking about money. I don't have that kind of, it's not in me. So I wanted someone who could kind of embody both. And I was really lucky because in my agent, I definitely found that. But I have some friends who were like, I only want a business partner. I don't want someone who's going to be too involved personally or in like the editorial process. I have friends who are the exact opposite, who were like, I definitely want to like be going to like events and like parties with my agent. And like, I want us to really be like friends. So it really depends on like what you're looking for. And I'm curious if you maybe have an answer to that.
It's interesting. If you asked me maybe before I started this podcast, I think my answer would be very different to what it is now. But I just feel like upon meeting so many agents, I think the first thing that I'm looking for is somebody who this is like their thing. It's not something they're juggling with a whole bunch of other things, because I kind of am putting everything I have into my work, and I kind of want to feel like that person is, you know, on the team and keen to make this their thing as well. But for me, it really comes down to like personality. I want to feel like the person is a calming presence.
Yes.
Because, you know, there are highs and lows in the space, and I don't like chaos. I like steadiness. So somebody who I feel is able to just like be cool about the highs, but cool about the lows, like not too much on either camp, I think is quite nice. So it's very much more like person dependent, I think. I have children and I am married. So for me, like when I have a little block, like I dive into that block and I'm there and I'm present, but then when I'm out, like I am so out. So I need somebody who also understands that like this is, for me, this is something I get to do, it's something I love, but it's not all of me. So it really depends, I think, on the person. But can I tell you something that has really, really, and I don't want to like badmouth anyone, because everybody I've met has been amazing. But there was somebody who I met when I ask everybody the same question at the end of these episodes. And it's, you know, what books have moved you? What books have made you smile? And to see this agent like light up about her client's work, you know, like that just moved me. It moved me so much. And I mean, obviously you're allowed to have interests out of the people that you're representing, but it's just so interesting for me. Like if you are given even the smallest platform, like what are you going to talk about? And to just see somebody like champion, you know, her author's work, like that just, wow, that I've never ever forgotten that. So
that's really nice. That's really nice. Right, exactly. That's how you know you found like someone truly special. And for me, what really stood out to me about my agent is she was like, you know, I understand you might be talking to other people, but she was like, here, do you want to like talk to some of the writers that I represent? And she put me in touch with two of them, and now we're like good friends. So that was like totally wonderful. And I think it spoke volumes to me about the fact that she knew that her writers, like, that they had a good enough relationship that like they would totally talk. And she encouraged them to talk like really, you know, frankly, right? Like talk about the highs, talk about the lows, you know, and yeah, just kind of like that honesty, that transparency, and that enthusiasm. That really stood out.
But you see, I'm not in a point yet where I am actually signing with anyone. So like I feel like I'm in the most amazing space because I'm just getting information. But when it actually comes down to like having to choose someone, I kind of feel like it could feel like The Bachelor. and I'm like, oh, but you sounded so nice, but you seem very business orientated and you seem like a really good hang. So how did you know? Like, did you just have a gut feeling like this is the person? What was it that made you feel at peace with your agent?
I think something that will also be really helpful is just hearing how they talk about your work, right? And this is something that you should definitely always ask is like, if they don't start this way, which they probably will, but you should ask like, yeah, what did you like about it? Like what specifically did you connect with? And then also ask them to talk about it kind of in conversation with other books that are out there. I think that'll be really telling.
What do
If
you
they
mean
bring
by
up,
that?
like, if they're sort of like, I see your novel sitting on the same shelf as like, X, Y, and Z writer. And if those writers are writers that you like love, who are kind of like the patron saints of your work, right? Who are your favorite writers just off the top of your head?
Well, I'm just going to make this about you and your book because, listen, I haven't read your book yet, but I have got strong vibes from your book. Okay, have you read The Paper Palace?
No, not yet. This is somewhere on my like TBR pile.
Okay, so that book like stomach punched me in the most beautiful way. Like I didn't expect to love that book as much as I did, but it spoke about some things that it's your book is clearly speaking about. However, I might be totally wrong, but your book also gives me like light-hearted rom-com vibes. So I'm like seeing like Paper Palace meets like Emily Henry, like which I'm so excited about because I'm reading this book my friend gave me, and if she's watching this, like I love her and I will finish this book, but I'm not in a space in my life where I want to read this book.
That's fair. Sometimes books don't find you at the right time.
Yes, I will finish it, but like when I just read the description of your book, I was like, yes, please, 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 please. I'm so excited to read this. So that's what I see when I think about your book. How far off am I?
I think I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like it definitely deals with some serious subject matter, but I think for me, and I put that all up front, right? It's like in the jacket copy, divorce, cancer, but I started in that place because I wanted most of the novel to be about her reclaiming her own life and her reclaiming her own story, and she and her best friend kind of sitting with this grief and figuring out what to do. That was so much more of the story that I wanted to write. So yeah, it was important to me that it could be about something serious, but also feel lighthearted and kind of cozy. Thank you for that.
But did your agent like get that right when she spoke to you? You were saying like how she talks about your book in conversation with others. Was that one of the things that you were like, yes, girl, you get where I'm going. It's you.
Yes. Okay, and like this is what a nerd I am. I like brought like a stack of books here that I think are like these were big influences for me, and these were all writers that like my agent and I talked about in early conversations, and like that for me was like we're on the right track. Have you read Heartburn by Nora Ephron?
I didn't know Nora Ephron wrote books.
Oh, she only left us with this one novel. So if I take it huge, I know you're like a rom-com fan, so you love her. There was a movie adaptation, which Meryl Streep was in it, and I love her to bits. I feel like the book was better. Highly recommend. It's like a slim novel. Yes. You're gonna love it.
Okay.
You're gonna love it.
Yay.
Yeah. And then her sister, who also co-wrote all of the rom-coms with her, Delia, has this memoir Left on 10th, which is also like about cancer, about losing her sister, but like honestly, you'll laugh and you'll cry. It's such a phenomenal memoir, and it's also on Broadway right now.
Amazing.
I know. Talk about adapting between mediums as like you are doing. So I think actually you in particular should definitely check out these two books.
I will. Don't you worry. Okay, what else have you got?
Okay, Department of Speculation by Jenny Awful. Have you read this one?
No. Yes, I'm so happy.
Yes, this is another quote unquote like divorce novel. You might be able to see kind of as I flip through formally though, there's like no chapters. You get story in fragments, which was like a big structural influence for me. What is the face that you're making?
Please. Oh gosh, this could be
the saddest
thing. Please tell me you use quotation marks.
Yes, I do use
because I can't read books with no quotation marks. I'm like not there.
Wait, okay, that's so interesting. Let's talk about that. Why did people start doing that?
I had this wonderful evening planned. Like again, mom, wife. When I have times in myself, like I am like, yes, I ran this bath. I got this book. I'm not going to name and shame.
Okay.
I was so excited. Bubbles, like candles. Like I am just so excited. I get in, and there's no quotation marks. And I'm like, what are you doing to me? Who's
That's so
speaking? I don't
who's
know what's going on. Like, why are you making me work so hard? I'm supposed to be relaxing.
I think like if you're doing it like very intentionally to like make some point about like I don't know the porousness of conversation. I mean, it has to be like super intentional if you're gonna do it like that. So I'm on your side here. I also don't love it when people do that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Okay, but I'm quite open to like different structures and all of that. So that's the book that you took structural inspiration from. Was there one
Yeah.
more? I think I saw another
And
one.
this one as well, kind of like no chapter markers. This one is really good though. It's called Chemistry by Waiki Wang. Like I read this in college when it came out, and it was just like this incredible like piece of contemporary Asian American fiction. And I feel like it just, I don't know, it talked about Chinese American families in a way that I hadn't really seen before, and it was super impactful to me. So these are kind of the four books that I love and take inspiration from, and the fact that like my agent from the get-go was kind of able to see that and kind of to talk about my book like in conversation with these was so so meaningful.
And I just want to shout out your agent because that is so nice. Like that is just the highest praise. Just compare your work with Nora Ephron. So like, I mean that's just like would unlock the key to my heart. So I can totally see why you went there with this agent.
I don't know if you can even see, there's behind me, this is like an illustration of Nora Ephron. That's how much I love her.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so my Nora Ephron is Nancy Myers. Like I love Nora Ephron,
Yes.
but I love Nancy Myers.
Something's gotta give. Beautiful houses.
All of the stories are so good. I gave myself a challenge in 1 month to just read Nancy Meyer movies, the movie screenplays, and it was just the
Ooh,
most
that's
joyful
a cool idea.
experience.
Yeah. Where do you find the screen? That's such a cool idea to read the screenplays.
Yes. Oh, I mean that's just fun for me.
Yeah,
But now
I
I'm
love
reading books. But like that's really fun, especially if you don't have a lot of time. Like reading a movie, you can do it in 2 hours and you get the whole experience. It's just like
it.
boom, 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 boom. It's dialogue. It's the way that Nancy describes things. It's really nice. I can send you some of these by email after.
Oh my God, yes, thank you.
Please, would you be so kind as to peel back the curtain of how a book deal works?
Yes, to the best of my ability. You're really lucky. You got an agent. The next step would be you and your agent will together kind of figure out a list of editors to submit to. And then your agent will write up kind of like a query letter of their own, right? So probably riffing off of what you sent them, but they'll put their own spin on it. My agent is so funny. She actually never showed me the letters that she sent out on my behalf. That's like I don't know, that's just like a fun part of her process. She was like, you don't need to know. I've talked you up. Don't worry about it. So yeah, you'll submit to a bunch of different editors, probably, anywhere between like 5 and 8 maybe. And then you wait, and then it's kind of just a waiting game. I know it can take anywhere from like a week to like a year, so never get discouraged. I mean, editors get like so many submissions, right? And like you can only read so fast. Yeah, I was really lucky. The process for me happened fairly quickly. So you'll meet with editors, they'll set a meeting. I'm really lucky. I like grew up in Brooklyn. I'm based in New York still. So I got to like meet with all these publishers that are based in Midtown Manhattan, like in person, which was really nice, going into like everyone's office and kind of seeing just like the vibe of the place, getting to meet some of their other like team members was super helpful for me in like putting together like a good mental image of like what working with this team would be like. Yeah, so you'll meet with them. They'll also talk about your book. I think this is like a great time to, again, like hear who they put you on the shelf with. You'll ask them about any edits that they might want to make. I think that is like a huge, huge kind of make or break moment, right, for you as a writer to see if like they share your editorial vision. And then, yeah, then you go home and you wait some more, and your agent will call you and tell you if anyone's made an offer. If you're really lucky, you have 2 editors or more bidding on you. They call that going to auction. I'm laying out like a best case dream scenario. So like don't get discouraged if this doesn't happen like right away. But yeah, if a bunch of different editors love you, they'll bid against each other. So your agent will like set a day, she'll be like Friday, 10 o'clock, get your opening bids in, and they will. And then I think each party has 1 or 2 chances, it depends on your agent who will determine the rules of the auction, to bid. And then she'll come back to you and she'll say, okay, here are all the editors, here are all the houses, here are all the offers. Now, you don't always have to go with the highest bidder, right? Because obviously, like, I mean, it probably matters more than the money, just like knowing that you found like the right fit, right? The right family for your book. So yeah, you and your agent will then go back and forth. You'll make pro and con lists. Yeah, and then you'll kind of go from there. I have more to say on this though, because the way that editors determine kind of what they're willing to offer you for your book when they're buying the manuscript, it varies so wildly, and quite frankly, it is such a crapshoot. Like, no one knows, obviously, like, what a book is gonna sell,
Yeah.
right? Like, no one knows if it's gonna be like a bestseller, and anyone who's doing the behind the scenes like business of books is like kind of trying to be like a fortune teller, right? They're kind of like, how many copies do we think this can sell? Like, what do we think? Right. Like, I mean, that's kind of the whole thing with book deals, right? Is like they wanna win the bid if they're trying to like bid out other editors. But they're also trying to determine, right, like their bottom line, right? Because, like, they're also a company. My boyfriend actually works in like the book finance side of things at a different house, so not the one that I sold my book to. So he has kind of a little bit of the behind the scenes of that process. Basically, when an editor wants to buy a book, so this is like the big behind the scenes. When an editor wants to buy a book, they'll submit kind of like a one sheeter to like the finance department that's sort of like, here's what I'd like to offer. Here are other titles that have come out recently that I'm comparing it to, right? Like, and obviously the editor who wants the green light for more money will be like probably putting a lot of like bestsellers on their like comparison list. And then kind of from there, the finance department will kind of figure out, profit, loss, all the number spreadsheet things that I'm not good at all. And then they kind of come to an agreement on like best numbers to offer.
And then do they only offer you one? So like one book, or would they offer you like multiple books?
Okay, yeah. So if you are going out, if you have multiple projects that you're kind of sitting on, this is a conversation for you to have with your agent. A lot of people I know have done like the 2-book deal, right? And that's usually like novel and short story collection. My agent did not want to do that. She thought it would be better for us to go out just with the novel and then to kind of go from there. And honestly, she was totally right in my case. I think personally, I think I would be really stressed out right now if I had to like deliver on another project. I kind of like the freedom of having only done like a 1-book deal. Yeah, because it just feels a little bit more open to me right now. But if you have like 2 books like totally done, that might be the way to go. So again, a conversation to have with your agent. And then the other way that book deals work. So what they offered you is called your advance. And that is like yours to keep. They'll usually give it to you in 4 installments. So first, when you sign with them. Second, when you deliver the like complete manuscript, right? So like after you've gone back and forth with your editor a couple of times and you're like, this is it, you can like now press print. The 3rd installment you'll get when the book comes out, the day it comes out. And then the 4th you'll get a year later when the paperback comes out. Usually is like how that goes. Yeah, and so that advance is yours as long as you like submit your manuscript on time and everything. Yeah, that's like yours free and clear to keep usually. And then whether or not you make money, what do they call it?
Royalties.
Royalties, thank you. You start earning royalties after you've like earned back your advance, right? So once the company makes back what they've given you, then you get whatever, percentage you've agreed upon in your contract for royalties.
That is fascinating. Thank you. That was the biggest behind the scenes I've got, and I can't tell you how many people are going to appreciate listening to that. So
Okay,
thanks.
good. I was like, that was my bumbly way to explain book business.
It's interesting because I've heard another author that I interviewed, she got a 2-book deal, but I think it was within like a certain amount of years. So she only had 1 book, and then she had like a certain amount of time to get the next book to them. And then she wrote like, I think maybe 1 or 2 books in between, but like the concept wasn't strong enough. And so she had to keep like starting something new until she actually found the next book that was like the 2nd book in the book deal. So, but listening to you now, like that is a lot of pressure actually.
A lot of pressure. That's a lot of, and I'm good with like deadlines, but I think that's like a lot of pressure. Like for me, like a big reason why I wanted to find an agent at the time that I did is I was like, I think I need like like someone who's like checking in on me to make sure I'm like working on a project, but someone who's not just like my best friend texting me to be like, did you do the thing that you said you were going to do? Like a
Mm.
professional colleague. Put that like soft pressure on me.
Please, can you explain to us maybe 3 things that surprised you the most from getting an agent to now having your book out on the shelves?
Okay, first surprise. I mean, I got really, really lucky. So for me, the process happened pretty quickly. We had like sent out the manuscript. And again, this is like dream scenario. Like, no one listening to this should get discouraged if it doesn't happen this way. I am like the luckiest girl in the world. She sent out the manuscript and we set meetings like not 2 weeks later. So like the process really like spiraled really fast for me. And the other really good lucky thing is who I eventually sold my book to, Summit, under Simon and Schuster. They are, as of this year, like reviving an older imprint that's like from the 70s. So the other thing that was really impactful at this time is that they didn't have like a backlist to work with, right? So like normally a publisher has like a bunch of like paperbacks and like other things that they're promoting at the same time that they're rolling out new material. But my imprint was just like hungry, ready to like go hard on their front list. So I think that's also like expedited the process for my book, which was super exciting. Yeah, the timing was definitely like a shock to me. The second thing that I think was surprising is honestly, I feel only affirmed that I chose the best possible team. Like, I wasn't expecting to get so close to the people that I was working with on this like project, but my agent and I text all the time. We're like always sending each other dog photos. Yeah, like my editor and my publicist are just like such phenomenal ride or dies. Like, I feel really lucky, and I wasn't expecting to kind of come into this like truly it feels like a book family. So I got really lucky there. And then the third thing that's been really surprising is the book has been in the hands of like early readers, and it was like a book of the month like selection this month, which was super super lucky. So if you're like a book of the month subscriber, you actually got like an early copy, and it's just been surprising to get like DMs on Instagram of people being like, I don't know you, but I'm reading your book now, and it feels
I've
so.
seen your stories. I'm like, wow, amazing.
Well, because for so long, right? It's just like you alone in your room, or not alone at a coffee shop in your case, but just you and this like project that you're working on, and it feels very private. So it's kind of such a trip to have other people like referencing your characters and things that have I'm almost like, how did you know? But it's, yeah, of course, it's out there now.
Oh, that's so exciting. Do you know what I think is also just so cool about your book is that the cover's nice.
I got really lucky there, didn't I? Yeah.
Yes.
I just feel like it's so eye-catching. The green is so fun.
Because something I think people can get it so right and so wrong. Like some of my favorite authors, I'm like, okay. And especially like if it involves people, like you can often feel the need to put people on the front cover, and that you can either get it or you can just not get it. And I'm curious, is your cover the same internationally, or are there different
It's
versions?
hang on. Okay. So in the UK, this is what the cover looks like.
Oh, interesting.
This is out from Brace in
Interesting.
the UK. Yeah, let me hold it closer. I love both of them so much.
Interesting. Yeah.
Uh, and so interesting to see kind of just like the different approaches. Something
Yeah.
both houses had me do, which was so, this is like honestly one of the funnest parts of the whole process for me, is they had me make like a mood board kind of for like the vibe that I wanted the
Huh?
cover to capture. And they had me do kind of like things elements that I would be interested in having, and then covers that I like don't like, which was super helpful. So yeah, that was a really fun like arts and crafts project for me to do. And yeah, I just feel really lucky that this is what came out of it.
You're well done to the illustrators and graphic designers there. Can you please explain marketing? How do you go about it? I know you have a publicist. How did you get to the point where you included a publicist? Please explain marketing to my audience.
This is something that I should maybe Google. So we should let's talk about this. In the US, there are, I think, 4 or 5 like big houses now. If you sell your manuscript to like like a publishing house, a larger publishing house, you'll have like an in-house publicist, which is like super nice. And I really lucked out. I have like the most wonderful publicist in the whole wide world. So that's like all kind of built into the process for you, which is really lovely. And so, she'll ask if I have any like essays in me, if I have any like book listicles that I want to do, and she'll kind of take that and like pitch on my behalf, which is like so generous, and she's so phenomenal at it. But yeah, the marketing plan I think kind of happens like in-house, right? Like you've sold your baby not just to an editor, but to like a whole team. So there are, marketing people, salespeople, a publicist, more assistants than you'll ever know working like behind the scenes.
It's so interesting hearing you say that because it's very different to everything I've heard. Now, I've interviewed multiple agents, and it seems like, and I've been very direct in asking how marketing should go and what the expectations are. And it seems the consensus is you should have an audience on social media as a requirement to getting representation almost, or it counts hugely in your favor, especially like the publishers are actually searching for that. Now, I obviously have thoughts on this because I'm like, okay, so what's the priority then? Is it the audience or is it the quality of the work? Because it doesn't matter having an audience if the book's not good, and if the book's great, it's going to get an audience.
Yeah, this is a great question. I feel like having an audience definitely helps. I don't really have any kind of like big audience. So if you're watching this and you're like, I don't, that's not like a make or break, I don't think, right? Like the quality of your work will speak to an editor. And I think they're not going to be like, well, we loved this book, but ooh, like the only person liking her Instagram stories is her mom. Like, so like that's a pass. Like it won't be like that. I do think that the followers and the kind of on-screen experience that you have like will only work in your favor. So I think it's kind of like a nice to have, but not a need to have.
Just out of curiosity, are you on Instagram only or TikTok also?
I'm only on Instagram, really. I'm old school. I feel like I don't want to learn another platform.
Listen, I get you. It's just because of having these interviews that I mean, I haven't had social media except for YouTube. I don't count that as social media. But like I've been off the socials for 5 years. And after interviewing all of these agents, I'm like, shucks, like I got to get on Instagram and TikTok. And you know what? I'm going to be honest. I'm actually loving it. I didn't expect to. I'm hugely surprised with how much fun I'm actually having on Instagram, not Instagram, on TikTok. Instagram is an interesting platform for me. TikTok is like, okay, interesting.
Yeah, but you already have the video editing experience.
Yes, and I love it. Like I get to make my own little movies, and like I have like this whole content like idea before I even start something. So it is something I think I just enjoy quite a bit.
I just learned how to make an Instagram reel for the first time. I feel like I'm having fun playing with that. And I mean, like,
Yes.
Something that your publisher will probably encourage you to do as you're nearing, publication of your book is to like start, again, nice to have, not a need to have, but they might gently encourage you to like start an Instagram, start posting. My friends recently have probably been like, you've been like posting a lot more. And I'm like, yes, it's time to start the publicity cycle. So I think, yeah, like it all helps, but it's not a make or break.
You seem to have like a relatively relaxed approach to social media.
I think so. I mean, I've had Instagram since I was like in high school, so it feels like a very natural platform to kind of still be on and like to be sharing bits of my life on. It's so funny though, because growing up, like my parents were so strict about like I wasn't allowed to have a MySpace, like I didn't get a Facebook until college, right? Like they were like, do not put your name or your face on the internet. And now that's kind of like actually my whole job.
Listen, I love your parents for that. Like, yeah, go parents.
There are outside like publicists that you can like hire. And I guess like, so again, like so much of that depends. Every like book publishing experience is so different. So like maybe if you're working with like a smaller house or if you're like self-publishing, you might want to like look into hiring like a publicist that like specifically like works in books and kind of knows the book media sphere. But it all depends on like what you're interested in, what your budget is, because that will require a little bit of extra coin.
Yeah, so something that I feel like I've been so privileged to have access to is actually speaking to people that aren't in the publishing industry necessarily, or publicists. So like
Mhm.
there's Bookstagram experts and book talk
Yeah.
experts, and like there's just so many different, like you said, for different budgets, different options for authors out there.
It's just so cool to see how, like, yeah, like Book Talk and like Bookstagram have totally changed. Like, I think a lot of publishing houses have had to really reevaluate their marketing strategy just because the landscape has changed so much, right? In a way that almost feels like we're getting a little bit closer to like an egalitarian like publishing landscape, right? Where like things can really pick up. I'm trying to remember what that book was that got really popular during the pandemic because of Book Talk. I want to say it was like Circe, was that it? There were like a handful of books that really like popped off on Book Talk, and it was really beautiful because they were books that had been out for a couple of years. I feel like publishing has this thing where they're really obsessed with like the new and shiny thing, right? So they call that the front list. Any books that are coming out this year, these are like the ones that they're talking about.
Yeah.
Um, and I think Book Talk and Bookstagrammers are so fun because they do care about that, but they also will like go just as hard for like a book that came out 3 years ago that they like
Mm.
love. And I think that that really prolongs the life cycle of a book in a really exciting way.
So you have spoken to us already about your book as well as your book recommendations, but I'm curious to know, who is your book for? So maybe who is it for? Like, who did you dedicate it to? And then, like, if you had to speak to my audience, like, who is the ideal reader for your book?
Oh, I love this question. I dedicated the book to my mother,
Oh.
to my whole family for, I think the dedication is like, thanks for not laughing at me when I said I was gonna like major in English. And then to my mom because I inherited my love of stories from her completely.
Oh.
And then my ideal reader, this is such a fun question because I feel like I have been in a handful of rooms lately where I'll be like explaining the plot of my book to people, and there will be like one like straight man in the group, and he will be like, I don't think that this book is for me. And I'm very interested in that. I'm very interested in that. And I don't take offense. I mean, not every book is for every person, and that totally makes sense. But I think that to me opens a larger conversation about how we are marketing books, right? Are you saying that because you think that this will be like women's book club fiction, and so you don't want to pick up a book like that? Are you saying that because the topics of like, Chinese mythology kind of comes into the book? Does that not feel like it's speaking to you? For me, my ideal reader, like beyond the bounds of like gender or race or any of that, is just someone who has like been through a lot. Our narrator in this book goes through a lot of hard times. Someone who's been through a lot, but also who wants to kind of laugh through it all, someone who knows how to take the good with the bad and who's had like a best friend to lean on. The best friendship in this book was like the most fun to write. So anyone who kind of takes heart in that kind of friendship story as well.
Well, thank you so much for sharing so much with us, and good luck. And I can't wait to see what happens next for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.